I will jump right in and share some thoughts on um, building AI startups and what it takes to build a venture fundable AI startup. And I'm going to talk about one very specific important aspect of it, which is how do you build a competitive moat if you're working on an AI startup. Now, at any point, if you guys have any questions, just raise your hand. I think I will be able to see it over here. And so don't hesitate to raise your hand, and I'll stop and you can ask your questions and then we can talk. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me one quick second. Okay, do you guys see this? Yeah, okay, good. So what I'm going to talk about is just at a high level, this theme of how do you build a successful AI product, and building a good product. And as you think about the product strategy associated with that, there are user-centric considerations, which are mostly around do you understand the user needs? Do you understand their problems? And then have something that actually meets them. And this is not what I'm going to spend time on, but I'm going to take a minute to talk about one very important piece of information here. My training is as an engineer. So my undergraduate degree was in engineering. I used to think like an engineer. There are many advantages of that mindset. One of the biggest advantages is your brain works in a solution-oriented way. When anytime you look at a problem, you start thinking about the solution and building that product, which is great. One problem with that mindset is that you often start building just because you know how to build. You just go and build stuff, and you don't spend enough time understanding who's going to use it, what is their actual problem. And this is a common mistake a lot of engineering minded students make. So with undergraduate students at Penn, sometimes I'm often working on it, which is like, how much time have you spent validating somebody wants to use this? You've got a great idea, you've got the skill sets to build it, but how much time have you spent validating that? And that's a common rookie mistake that people make. I won't spend much time on that. Instead, I'm going to spend time on the second question. How do you build a competitive moat when you're building a product? And I'm going to ask that question and address it in the context of building a product using generative AI. So what if you want to build something on top of GPT-4 or Meta's Llama 2? And what does it take to build a competitive moat there? I'm guessing some of you at least have been trying to play around with ChatGPT or GPT-4 and trying to see, hey, what can I build on top of it? And so now let's imagine for a moment you want it to be not a hobby project, but a real business. What needs to happen for it to be a real business? So we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to talk about this concept known as GPT wrappers. And I'll illustrate this concept of GPT wrappers in a moment, but very briefly, just talk about, for those of you who are not familiar, what the generative AI landscape looks like. So if you look at generative AI today, first, the base of that stack is very specialized and expensive hardware that can run these AI models. So NVIDIA, for example, makes these GPUs that are the basis of all of these AI models. Zuckerberg just announced a few weeks ago that they'll be spending what looks like nearly $9-10 billion on GPUs, the hardware, just in 2024, right? So there's really specialized, expensive hardware to run AI. This hardware is offered you don't have to buy the hardware. It's offered on cloud platforms like Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services, where these companies buy the hardware, install, manage, maintain it for you. Then on top of those cloud platforms, somebody's built these foundation models, like the large language models. So OpenAI has built GPT-4 or the app ChatGPT. There are others like Anthropic. They have their model called Cloud. Google has Gemini. Um, and Anthropic is a big investment by Amazon. So you can think of, OpenAI is a big investment from Microsoft. You can think of OpenAI is from Microsoft. Anthropic is Amazon's funded, and then Gemini is Google, and there's many other foundation models. Meta has an open source foundation model called Llama 2. So these models have a lot of capabilities. And often a lot of entrepreneurs are building apps using these. For example, and I'm sure there are apps that you guys are using today. I'm not aware of what high schoolers are using today. So I'll talk about some apps that I know are used in the business world. So for example, there are startups that are helping companies write legal contracts without having to spend an insane amount of money going to a lawyer. Because what happens is these apps, you go in and you specify what kind of legal contract you want, and then they will use an LLM to build the legal contract. Then there is GitHub Copilot, which is another app that uses these foundation models to help software developers write software code. There's a tool called Pseudowrite. There are many others that are for writing short stories or writing articles and so on. So I don't know if your school bans LLMs or not, but in some situations where it's not banned, you can imagine when you're trying to write an essay, you could write it using ChatGPT's help, or you have these apps like Pseudowrite where you can go in and type your essay there and it'll help complete sentences, complete paragraphs, give you ideas where you're stuck and things like that, right? So that's generally the AI stack. For most people, they're going to be in the app layer because the other layers are very expensive, and generally large companies with hundreds of millions of dollars occupy those layers. So I'm going to focus on apps for a minute and talk about what it takes to build a competitive moat. Let's think of an example of Jasper AI. Now, you may not have heard of Jasper AI. It was an app that was meant to write marketing copy using AI. So for example, if I'm an advertiser and I'm trying to create an ad, I have to create text for that ad. I have to create visuals for that ad. Jasper was an app that helped people do that. And when Jasper was announced, it was a darling of Silicon Valley. Started in spring 2021. Soon enough, raised $125 million. 1 year later, 1.5 years later, at a $1.5 billion valuation. And they had about 70,000 users and already were making about 45 million in revenues. So things looking really good. In 1.5 years, they went all the way to being a unicorn, a $1 billion company. And that looked great. But then soon ChatGPT got launched. And after ChatGPT got launched, everyone started asking, how hard is it to build Jasper? Because you can just use API calls to GPT-4. And if you're not familiar with API calls, just imagine that this is a scenario like using ChatGPT and asking ChatGPT questions like, hey, I'm trying to create an ad for a product, which is my phone. This phone has these features, battery life, its memory, and these other things. Help create a compelling ad copy using this. And ChatGPT can do that. So people started asking, what's so unique about Jasper? It's so easy to do with ChatGPT. Soon enough, they started doing layoffs. The founder resigned, lots of issues. Their monthly traffic started dropping, and also their revenue started dropping because a lot of their customers started just directly using ChatGPT. And so while they had traction and while things looked good, what ended up happening was that people thought this is an AI startup, but what it was an API call to GPT-3. And once ChatGPT came out, everyone realized, oh, all this is just a GPT wrapper. And it's very easy to build and very easy for competitors to come in and do that. And so then the question comes up, which is, here's one tweet which says that almost everything I've seen in AI looks like a wrapper on top of OpenAI APIs, hacked together in a weekend. This is not defensible. There's no moat there. So that's one viewpoint. Another viewpoint is, hey, look, a lot of really successful businesses actually look like wrappers. So, whether it's Twitch, whether it's, a lot of startups are just, a wrapper on top of something else. So maybe wrapper by itself is not bad business. And, like there was this tweet by somebody saying, hey, liquid death is just water. And this company has raised $70 million, made $130 million, and all they're doing is selling water, which they procure from whatever, some spring, but it's how they market, and their valuation is based on the brand they've built and very clever marketing and understand how to present the water to consumers. So it's in the wrapper. And so that's the other viewpoint, that wrapper itself isn't bad. So the question is, if you are building something that's honestly looks like, if not a weekend project, something you can put together in a month, where does the competitive moat come from? And how can you start building a moat? And so this is, one of these things I found online where this guy is telling himself in the mirror, yes, I'm a GPT wrapper, but trust me, you'll have a moat, and so on. And honestly, when you build a product or a company, on day one, you're not asking yourself, what's the moat? A good good entrepreneur, a good product designer sees a problem, builds the best way to solve it, and then may discover, hey, what I have is just a simple wrapper. And so you have to answer the question of how do I build a moat later over time. So if you're ideating, I would say don't worry about the moat question today. You can worry about it much later. And if you start to find product market fit, if you start to find users for your idea, then you start to think about, okay, what is so defensible about what I have? I hope this idea of a moat is clear to you guys, but if not, let me just take 15 seconds to just clarify what I mean. Suppose I have some special product that everyone likes, and people suddenly see, hey, this guy's building, Kartik is building a great product that everyone likes, but there's nothing unique and differentiated about it. Then anyone who starts to find out about this and has some moderate level of skills will say, hey, maybe I can build the same thing. I can build the same thing, and soon I will have dozens of competitors. And all of a sudden, my product, which has customer traction, I'm going to lose market share very fast. And my price is going to keep dropping because others are building the same thing. So I need a secret sauce. I need something unique. Otherwise, everything looks the same. So your moat is your secret sauce. What do you have that others cannot easily copy? And so if you look at where moat comes from, it can come from different places. For example, one of the common moats on internet is network effects. If I start a product before others and I've already got a large enough base of users, then my moat is my network effect, because even if somebody else can copy it, they won't be able to get users because the value of that product depends on the number of users. That's what network effect means. So for example, Twitter is a product a lot of people are complaining about. And a lot of people have built Twitter competitors, but they haven't yet been able to displace Twitter because Twitter has network effects. If somebody else builds a product that's as good as Twitter and I sign up on that platform today, its value is still limited, even though it has the same functionality of Twitter, because if I go tweet, there's nobody on the other side. I will reach many more people on Twitter. So even though somebody else started a similar product later, they are not able to get users because the network effects don't exist. So that's a common one. So you have to build network effects into your product. One type of network effect is a platform which has like iOS is a platform where you have users and developers. Users like Apple's iPhone, let's say, or Android for that matter, because there's lots of apps on it. And as a developer, I will put the effort to build an app for iOS or Android because there's a lot of users on it. So even though there are many other operating systems, not just iOS and Android, the platform two-sided network effect sustains those two, because as a developer, I won't build my app for every operating system out there. I'll only build it for the ones where there are enough users. And a user, I'll only buy a phone where there's enough apps on it. And so that's what sustains them. And there's many other ideas here. I won't go through all of them in the interest of time, but I can come back to it in a moment. So let's think about where would network effect come for a product like Jasper. And instead of Jasper, I will use my own startup, JumpCut, to illustrate this idea of the network effect, of competitive mode. So what I'm going to do is very quickly pull up my browser and show you what our product does. So what our product does is, if you're a Hollywood studio and a writer has written a movie script, and then submitted it to you, and you have received so many submissions, you don't have enough time to read all of them. You're trying to prioritize your efforts to figure out which ones to read. You want AI to do a pre-read so that it can tell you what each script is about, what's unique and different about each, so you can figure out which ones to focus your attention on. So what we do is we do that AI pre-read for these people. So I'm going to upload a script here. And I don't know where I have all the scripts stored, but let me just pull up some script over here, and then I put in my email address and I say, okay, please go ahead and generate this coverage. Now, what happens at the back end is we will read that script. We will have AI read the script, and it'll generate a coverage. It'll say, okay, what is this script about? One line description: a determined journalist finds himself entangled in a deadly conspiracy involving high-ranking officials and a dangerous fertilizer scam, and blah, blah, blah. What subgenres does it belong to? Which movies is it similar to? Here's a more detailed synopsis of the story where I can understand what this story is all about. And then it gives what is known as a beat sheet. What is the first shot? How are the characters introduced? What is the theme of the story? What incident kicks the story into action? What is called inciting incident in a story? What's the major conflict? And so on. And there's a bunch of these things. Now, I won't go through all of these, but there's a lot of stuff in here. Now, when we built this, we got a lot of Hollywood studios loving what we're doing, and lots of people starting to use us. Soon, copycat products started springing up. I would show you some of the copycat products, but I don't want to promote any of my competitors, so I'm not going to do that. But literally, they're copycats to the extent where my head of product was so frustrated that they not only copied our product at a high level, they copied it to the extent of even these headers was our format. The log line followed by subgenres, synopsis, then you have the beat sheet, all of this stuff. And we're like, look, there's no innovation there. They're just literally copying us, and they're going into OpenAI GPT-4 and constructing the prompts, and then getting this information and replicating our product and undercutting our price. So they cut the price by nearly a third. So you can imagine my frustration. Somebody copies my product, sells the same product for a third of the price. And literally, we thought of the product, we ideated it, we did all the work. And so that's the frustration. And the fear is, hey, is the GPT wrapper syndrome happening to me? And so now we have to think hard about, okay, how do we beat that, right? And so here's some of the things we've been doing. So we've changed our product from a product where you upload a script and you get an email with the summary, to a product where now you have a database with all of your previous scripts and all of the summaries here. You can search for it at any point. You can come in, and I won't demo all of these for you, but you can come in and start saying things like, I'm looking for an action comedy with 2 male leads. One, because I'm looking for a project for, say, I have a big Hollywood actor who's interested in acting in my movie. They're looking for a script. They want an action comedy. And I can say things like, I'm looking for an action comedy with 2 leads. One of them should be African American, age 40, because that actor is African American, and the other one is, say, Asian American or Caucasian or whatever, age 30, could be male or female, and so on. And so I can come and run those searches, and it'll show me in our database of all of the thousands of submissions which ones meet those needs. I can start tagging people and collaborating with them. So I can go into some of these things and start looking at the reports. I can add comments. I can tag my colleagues and share information with them. And so one of the things we've tried to do is, and I'll stop sharing here, one of the things we've tried to do is to say, hey, what we have with the script summary is just a simple coverage, but the one way to build in lock-in is by allowing team collaboration and by building a full database. So if they were to switch to a competitor, they're going to lose that full database that they've created in our system. And they have to restart that from scratch with that competitor. Upload all of those scripts, all of those comments will be lost. All of those discussions will be lost, because now every time you have a script, different team members post their comments, they come to a decision saying this is a pass. You lose all of those comments that are in our system. And so the more they use our product, the more information they're creating there that gets lost anytime they switch to a competitor. So that's one way to build a moat. I'll mention a couple others, and then I'm going to open it up to any questions, comments that you have. I see somebody just posted, I have a pending communication assignment. Jump cut is going to be a life savior here. I don't know if that's true, because we specifically focus on summarizing books and movie scripts. If that's what you're doing for your assignment, then yes. If you're trying to summarize a book or a script, we'll do that really well and save you tons of time. Okay, it's based on a movie. Fine, I did save you time. Now, if your teacher starts chasing me saying that, I'm creating problems for them, I will plead ignorance. What are some other ways you can create a moat? I'll mention a couple others. If you've got tons of data, you can create a moat using data, where what you can do is you can take GPT-3 or GPT-4 or Llama 2 or whatever is the foundation model, fine tune it to your curated proprietary data set. And by fine tuning it, you've created a brand new model that is custom fit for your data. And so because you have more data than your competitors, you have an advantage. So you are helping, let's say, create a system where AI can help diagnose diseases or work collaboratively with uh, doctors in diagnosing diseases. Now, your competitor can also go and ask ChatGPT about that. But hey, a doctor is not going to rely on ChatGPT's diagnosis. But what if you had a proprietary data set of, say, 5 million patients who've come into a hospital, and here are their symptoms, here was the final diagnosis of the doctor. You took that data of 5 million patients and now you fine-tuned GPT-4, and now you've created something special. No competitor can mimic you because they have to create that proprietary data set. That's how you create a competitive moat. The other way you have a competitive moat is you have some last mile advantage, meaning some advantage in terms of how you deliver the product to users. So you look at GitHub Copilot, which is an AI system that recommends code as you're coding. There are many other companies that have created software development copilots. Yet GitHub Copilot has the most number of users. Why? It's not because its product is better. Maybe it is marginally, but the reason it's better, it has a huge lead, is that GitHub already had a large base of users. And so it could immediately deploy that product or that app to tens of millions or hundreds of millions of users. And a competitor has to start from scratch. And so that was its advantage. So you have a last mile distribution advantage, you have a data oriented advantage, or you are able to create a communication collaboration kind of aspect to your app where it creates a switching cost for your users. So you have to think about all these as ways of creating moats. Okay, so let me just stop here. I see one question, just jump cut provides summaries for individual chapters for books. We do summaries for individual chapters as we are creating the overall summary. Currently, we don't provide chapter by chapter summaries, but we provide detailed breakdowns. But in fact, just as of last week, one of our clients asked for that. And so now we're going to be building that capability where you'd get chapter by chapter summaries of books. And there's a publisher that also we're talking to who wants that feature. And so we'll do chapter by chapter breakdowns for books. So I'm going to open it up to questions. I believe we have Calvin and organizing team. Do we have another 5 minutes?
We have like 5-10 minutes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. So I'd love for this to be more interactive. I've talked for a bit, but what makes this more fun for me is to hear from you guys. So let's do that. Edward, why don't you go ahead?
I have a question, and that was when we're talking about the data moat, which you said, um, when we're not talking about RAG, but like actually like retrieving data, if we're talking about fine tuning, what is there like any concern? Like, how would you deal, I guess, with the the fact that if OpenAI maybe releases a new model that you would have to like refine tune or any changes, or the fact like I know there's been like privacy concerns with OpenAI, and if they might train on the data you give it, would you like respond to that, I guess?
Yeah, so there's two ways to think of that. The first way is to say, yes, every time they come up with a new model, you have to fine tune again. And so one way to approach that is to say, well, that's why it's hard, and that's why ultimately we'll have a competitive moat. But it means there is pain involved in fine tuning. Usually, I recommend to people fine tuning isn't the first place you want to go. So first, when you're trying to do something, think as much about, can I achieve it through prompt engineering? Can I keep changing my prompts and do things like chain of thought prompting? I'm getting a bit technical. Some of you might not know this, but Edward, it looks like you are familiar with this, so I'm describing it for you. So always go with prompt engineering as much as possible. Once you have run out of steam with prompt engineering, then before you consider fine tuning, do RAG, which is the other thing you mentioned, which is simpler than fine tuning. And so then go to fine tuning. If you've got lots of data, your tasks are complicated enough and cannot be achieved with just prompt engineering or RAG, then you do fine tuning. But yes, then you take on the headache that fine tuning takes time, requires some skill sets, and has to be redone every time there's a model update. And regarding privacy, two ways to look at that is one, Today, OpenAI and Microsoft Azure, which has an implementation of GPT-4 within their cloud environment, offer uh, enterprise solutions where they guarantee that your data will not be used for training the model. And so you have those guarantees. But if you are not happy with those guarantees and you say, hey, that's just a guarantee, but what if they cheat? What if they lie and they actually use my data? Then what you do is you use an open source model like Llama 2 and you run it in your own cloud environment, and nobody else can access that because you are running the model and you're training. So if you're worried about privacy or sharing the data with someone else, then the best thing to do is run an open source model like Llama, and then you'll be fine. Okay,
Thank
Sagar.
you.
And then I see Aditya has a question on chat, but I'll get to it after, or Aditya also raised his hand. Sagar and then Aditya.
Right. Hi, Professor. I was just curious. I know it's a different industry, but for Yodel specifically, how did you go about kind of creating that competitive advantage and moat within the marketing industry?
Yeah, so Yodel was different as you suggested. So Yodel initially, when we started, there were a few competitors. And when we actually tried to fundraise, by the way, most VCs rejected us for two reasons. One is they said um, there's no competitive moat. And two, they also said it's very localized. We would have two undergraduate students, and I started it. The one undergraduate student would go door to door, like would go to a salon owner, a spa owner, a lawyer, realtor, and sign them up as customers. And then we would manually generate keywords for them, go into Google's interface and put in the bids and so on. And they were like, it won't scale because there's such a feet on street kind of sales process. And if you have salespeople going and meeting clients individually, it's worth it if the client is worth like $500,000 a year. But a small business that's spending, $10,000 a year is not that. And so that was their concern. So on the mode, the way we solved it is, and that's where my AI background came in. I spent time building those algorithms, and we constantly kept improving those algorithms because as we have more and more clients come in, we have more and more data. And so our algorithms are trained and get better and better over time. So our argument was our competitors are doing this manually using very simple rules. We have machine learning algorithms generating keywords, optimizing the bids. And even if they decide to copy us, we will keep getting better and better as more and more data comes in, and we will stay ahead of them. So that was how we did it there. Aditya? I thought your hand was up, Aditya.
Actually, no, I just wrote in the chat only.
Okay. Let me see what you've written in the chat with. The summary collection of jump cut becomes an audiobook. And summary, will this become another moat in new market launch? Can you elaborate what you mean? So at jump cut, when we create a summary, you're saying will the summary become a new moat and a new market? What do you mean by that?
No, actually, in the previous answer that you gave,
Yeah.
that you are going to introduce a summary concept of that, where each chapter has its own summary.
Yeah.
So it came to my mind that OpenAI has an Whisper AI model where it turns text to speech and speech to text.
Yeah.
So you think if you convert all the summaries and churn it to Whisper AI, it would become a and kind of audiobook and summary. And currently, right now, as I am seeing that the market share of audiobooks is just keep on increasing because
Mhm.
people like that 10 read a book in just 10 minutes of audiobook.
Yeah, I
So you
understand.
think that would become a new mode? and new market to capture?
Yeah, look, I think I have to think harder about this because people clearly want audiobooks, but do people want audio summaries? I don't know, maybe. Um, but is that a new market? Is that a new moat, or is that just feeding our summary and allowing them to listen to that summary? It's an interesting idea. Look, I think you've said something interesting. No, none of our clients have brought it up, but this idea that maybe they're busy, they're at the airport,
Yeah.
checking in or something, they can listen to that summary. And I think it's something worth exploring for us.
Yeah, because it just came to my mind that the short form content is actually a lot more prevalent on social media. So let's say if Jumpcut even wants to promote itself, just by putting some summaries in a 30-second short short shorts on YouTube or maybe on Reels, uh, it can also become a marketing strategy also. It's very easy to use that when you brought up the summary part of your jump cuts idea.
Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks for that. I'll think more about it. There may be something there.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
Jose.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. Could you briefly explain, like, if you can, understanding like the needs of your customers and what you can see? What are like your plans ahead for the future of JumpCut?
Yeah, look, I think our customers are asking for, the summaries that I provided is just a start, but they're asking for more things like they run marketing campaigns and they post a trailer for a movie on YouTube. 5,000 people comment on it. Can we summarize those comments and help them understand very quickly what are those customers saying to them? Can we help them process legal contracts where they've the movie industry is full of legalese, lots of contracts with lots of people. Can we help them manage those kinds of text documents? Later, can we go from text to images? Can we go to video? One of the studios asked, is there a way for us to create a rough cut of a movie from the script? So they're not expecting that the movie will be shown to their audiences, but this is a way for them to visualize the movie and kind of understand what this movie will look like. And then they decide to go produce it. Even if it looks like poor production value, can we help them do that? So there's a lot of requests that have come to us. We have to now figure out which ones are asked by lots of companies and not just by an individual company, meaning there's a large enough market. Which ones do we have the skill sets to build for? And then prioritize our resources for that. But there's a lot to do here. I mean, the movie industry, or you go to podcasting, you go to any content related area, there's a lot to do with generative AI.
But could I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So basically, it would be like adding more features, but staying in the same industry. More or less.
Maybe, but it's also possible. For example, like if we build what they're saying, which is summarize YouTube comments or TikTok comments for these studios. Once we do it for them, why only for them? Why not for brands that are doing promotional videos on these platforms? Why not for creators who want to understand what are their fans saying and don't have time to read every comment? So that could take us to a different market. Legal contracts, if we do it for them, why only restrict it for them? Why not go to other industries? So right now we understand this industry the best, so we'll build for them. But then if those products stick, then we can start to think about how do we further expand. I think with all businesses, it starts off, you target one customer base and you expand further. I mean, look at Facebook or Meta today. I don't know how many of you know, but probably you guys don't use Facebook much. You're probably on Instagram, but before they got to Insta, they built Facebook. Before they built Facebook, they built Facebook for university students and high school students. It was only for them. Once that worked, they said, why not open it up to everyone? Once that worked, we said, why only do this? Why not Insta? And so on, you expand. And so we also might expand over time.
Yeah. Could I ask one last question? Sorry, because.
Okay, sure.
And how would you like expand How would you deal with the lack of domain knowledge in the different industries you would be getting into?
Which is why you don't start off there. You start with things you understand, which is why I was saying we'll first stick to this industry. We have clients, we understand that. I think once we find success with that, then you go raise money from VCs. Then you go say, let's open up a new market and hire people who have experience in that market and have them take it to those markets. That would be the sequence in which we do this. I think I'll take the last two questions because I do not want to overstay my welcome here. So I don't know if what else is being planned next by the organizers. So I'll take a question or comment from Shrestha and then by Edward. And by the way, these questions are all great. I'm enjoying it. And it's exactly what I was hoping for, which is why actually I have my son who's a middle school student hanging out on the side here. I'll say hi to you. And he's a middle schooler. And I told him, hey, just come and check out, see what the high schoolers ask. Maybe you'll learn something from that. And I feel like he's getting something out of it. So Shrestha, go ahead.
Hi, Professor. So I was wondering, given how widespread AI is becoming nowadays, I'm assuming that investors are probably becoming more selective. And since many APIs are very similar, I was wondering what specific elements or metrics do you think they consider most critical when they're evaluating the startups for potentially funding them?
Yeah. So look, I think if you are not an app, but building a foundation model, building a model for video, for images, for text or whatever, the biggest thing they're looking for is the core founding team. What are their chops? Have they written seminal papers in AI that form the basis of that? So the stakes there tend to be like deep researchers. But if you're building an app, calling these APIs and solving problems for consumers or for businesses and so on, one of the biggest questions tends to be what I just brought up, and that's why I spent a lot of time on it. Is this a wrapper? And if not, what is the moat and where does that moat come from? And so I think that's one of the big questions one has to answer well before VCs come in and put in millions of dollars. Because what's happening today is the foundation models are not only good, but they're getting better and better with each new iteration. Most of the magic today is happening at the foundation model. And so if most of the magic is happening there, if you're using it, every competitor can use it too. So what makes you so special? And that's the question you have to answer. And that's why I spend time on things like network effects, collaboration, last mile. Think hard about ways to create that moat. And that's what drives those investment decisions. Of course, they care about all of the things they've always cared about. Things like the problem you're solving, how real is the problem? Who's the customer? How many customers are there? Does it add up to a large enough market size? Right? So the problem, the market size, what is the team? Is this team great? And the core team matters. So anytime a VC invests, they look at the founding team to understand their people who understand product well, product/engineering, right? People who understand that well, and people who understand marketing/sales well. And they want to know the founding team has both those capabilities in the team. So all of those are usual criteria that have always mattered, continue to matter. But the new criteria with AI is where's your moat if the magic is happening with the foundation model? And so yeah, think hard about that.
Thank you.
Okay, with some drum rolls, I will welcome Edward as a final question.
Thank you. Is it okay if I ask two, or should I stay with one?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I have two questions. One first about you, and then one like how to kind of to give advice to me. The first one was in your product, Jump Cut, you mentioned that I guess your moat that you came up with was almost that database you had where it would stay there. So it wasn't simple to just switch to another product. But then what I was thinking was, I guess that does work to retain your users, but when you're like getting new users, your CAC value, etc., wouldn't there be an issue with that? I guess for your product, it's fine, partially because I think there's like a second moat, the network effect, because in the database, you said that you could share it with others. There was like a collaborative aspect to it. But apart from your use case, do you think having a database moat without another moat or a hidden network effect could ever work alone, I guess?
Well, I would say you only need one mode that actually works. And the reason you play around as a company with 2-3 modes is you're worried you don't have one of your modes in theory makes sense, but in practice doesn't. And so you play around with 2-3 to see what actually might work. But you only need one that actually genuinely works. Like network effect, if it's working, that's all you really need. Right? And then you just continue innovating with your product, but network effect will take care of the fact that their competitors trying to copy you. I mean, like I said, look at Twitter, so many people since Elon bought Twitter who've been trying to build their own Twitters. No good traction there because network effect really works there. And it won't work forever, but it does work for now. And it means that for somebody to beat Twitter, given Twitter's network effect, you have to have a product that's much better and not the same, right? And so even for us, database, will it work? I don't know. Right now, with initial customers, we are telling them, look, you're not getting just summaries. You're getting a database which will improve your workflow, which will improve your collaboration with your team. It will improve your institutional memory of all these scripts because you can go back and search, and it will improve your collaboration, and it will do all of that. And we're still very early stage startups. We're running a few free trials. And by the end of this month, we're going to start seeing if those trials start converting. And already, like I said, I'm facing pricing pressure because of competitors. And my hope is these other things I'm offering will be enough for people to say, okay, what you have is unique and interesting and will stick with you. But that is a theoretical idea I have today, which is my database plus collaboration features will be my moat. And it makes sense in theory. In practice, is it enough of a feature that these companies will say, yes, fine, I'm sold? If we repeat this in a few weeks, or you follow me on LinkedIn, maybe you'll see some answers there on whether those are working. In fact, I will share a couple things with you. One is my Substack, where I'm often talking about these kinds of things and AI related themes. So I just posted it in chat. It's Hosanagar, that's my last name, .substack.com. And so I post there probably at a frequency of once a month, although I haven't posted in 2-3 months. I'll be posting one within the next week. But I post a lot of AI startups, AI business, AI creator economy types of things there. And the other is LinkedIn itself. You follow me on LinkedIn and I'm posting a lot of AI related things there. So we can always continue the conversation in these two places. So make sure you follow me in both on Substack and LinkedIn to keep that conversation going.
So thank you. Sorry.
Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you for your like really in detail and thorough answer. And you almost like perfectly set me up for the second thing I was going to say when you were talking about startups having multiple modes because they're really worried if one doesn't work. I come from more of a technical foundation. I guess I'm more of a developer, even though I am really interested in business. And for this specific competition, I was building an AI platform. We did start coding it. We did start making it. And that our primary issue was that we didn't want to be a rapper. And I guess that's the question they gave us after a pitch. How are you different? And we struggled. We tried a lot of different modes. We tried adding almost a social media kind of aspect to it to try having network effects. We tried thinking of the possibility in the future having fine tuning. Is there, when you're kind of like, I don't really know what to explain for these type of projects, how do you find your mode? Like how are you able to decide what mode you think works well for you?
You do it in a few ways. One, you are aware of all of the modes, you keep up with tech Twitter, you keep up with what other companies are doing, and you're constantly on the lookout for what are some interesting things other firms are doing in other industries that are relevant for mine. Two, you constantly experiment. Like I said, certain nodes make sense in theory, may not in practice. So you constantly experiment. You build stuff, you push it out, see what happens, and you quickly kill them when it's not working. Or if it's not working, but you have an idea of how to fix it, you go in that direction. And you are constantly experimenting until something sticks and you find your mode. But if you stop running those experiments and you just kind of say, I have users, it's working, but hey, competitors are coming in and quickly replicating what I'm doing, then you're in deep trouble. But the only solution is experiment constantly, and keep up with trends in the space. When you see something interesting, see how it maps to what you're building, prioritize, and then start trying things out.
Thank you. I enjoyed reading about you in the SAT, about what you wrote.
Okay, good. Yeah, I even found a meme. Somebody had posted a meme on one of our papers in one of these underground websites you guys have where you guys discuss SAT questions and so on. So somebody told me about it. Okay. Organizing team, Calvin and everyone else, thanks for having me. And I turn it over to you to tell everyone what are the next steps here.
All right. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor. Especially for going over time with the questions and answers. You went really into detail, and I think everyone here really appreciates that as we kind of take the next steps. So yeah, you're pretty much good to go if you'd like to leave now. And again, just one more thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks all. I'm going to sign off, and good luck both with high school and with your college applications and with your entrepreneurial interests. I think one thing I will say with startups is the odds of a startup working are really low, but probability works in your favor if you just keep trying ideas one after the other. It's like rolling a dice. If you're rolling a die and it needs to turn up 6, the odds are just 1 in a 6. But if you give yourself 5, 6 rolls of the dice, the odds that one of them will end up as a 6 is very high. And so with a startup, again, the odds that one of your startup ideas works is low. But if you keep at it, something doesn't work, work on your next, you'll find something that sticks. That's been my experience. I've had a big success with Yodel, but I have many failed startups as well. And that's okay because you learn from those failed startups. Don't make that mistake and the next one improves. So with that, good luck. And again, connect with me on Substack and LinkedIn, but here's me signing off.